Now, here's the thing. Who's right? Scientists and doctors or the Prime Minister? I thought it was too good to be true. When Boris Johnson made the announcement yesterday, we just played you a little clip of it, 5 days, 3 families, you can let go a little bit over that period. So remember, still employing some common sense along the way. But it is Christmas, and if you play this one correctly, that would be a reasonable response so that we don't devastate families anymore over a festive season. And I thought it's only a matter of time before one of those sage scientists pops their head out of the Teletubby hole in the ground and, like a proverbial meerkat, opines on the reason why the Prime Minister is wrong. It didn't take any time at all. Meet Professor Andrew Hayward. He's the man that has said the Christmas bubble plan will pour fuel on the COVID fire and lead to more deaths. Who are you siding with here, the Prime Minister or the Professor? 0344 499 1000. He said the 4 nations approach, and this is just England and Wales, Scotland, Ireland as well. Northern Ireland, the 4 nations approach to Christmas risks triggering a 3rd wave of the pandemic in the new year. Boy, this man's got some really good news for us, hasn't he? Earlier, of course, it was announced the 3 households able to mix. This is from the 23rd to the 27th of December, regardless of existing lockdown tiers. So there is a COVID holiday during that time, and the rules mean that families can be reunited for the festive season, but they cannot meet, and there are some caveats to this. You can't meet in pubs, and care home residents are over 65 and not included. The bubbles formed must be exclusive and be strictly only 3 households over the entire period. So you couldn't have 3 households one day and then on Boxing Day say, right, scrap that, let's get the neighbours round. You can't do that. They have to remain exclusive over the whole 5 days, not just at the same time. So Professor Hayward said effectively, here's what he said, and he has some support from his fellow clinicians and scientists on this. He said, effectively what this means we are doing is throwing fuel on the COVID fire. It will definitely lead to an increase in transmissions. It is likely to lead to a 3rd wave of infections, with hospitals being overrun and unnecessary deaths. I mean, this guy's pulling no punches. Boris Johnson announces the easing. The professor says more people are going to die because of what Boris Johnson has agreed to. 0344 499 1000. He says we are still in a country where we have higher levels of infection with COVID, particularly in young people. I just wish they would kind of remove themselves from this fascination of higher levels. It isn't about higher. There's a pandemic out there. People are going to get it. Like in the winter, some people get flu. Another pandemic will have a very similar behavioural pattern. Some people will get it. Getting it isn't the solitary issue in this discussion. And if more younger people are getting it, one has to reasonably assume, the last time I looked, that's a whole bunch of people that aren't going to get it again, based on what we more or less currently know. He says, I think this is a recipe for regret for many families. With the vaccine on the way, if we are not very careful over Christmas, we're in real danger of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory on this one. So this is Boris Johnson's own SAGE committee. This is one of the professors that sits on the SAGE committee telling us that loads of people are going to die because of the Prime Minister's relaxing of the festive COVID rules. Whose side would you take on this? Boris Johnson or the professor? 0344 499 1000. Now, this isn't the entirety of the SAGE committee. This is one voice on that committee, but it is reflected by other scientists, epidemiologists, virologists around the world who tend to agree. Lots of countries are doing something rather similar to this. So he's not quite a lone voice in this. I'm intrigued to know, bearing in mind we've given correctly the Prime Minister and co a right royal kicking in the last couple of months because they haven't behaved brilliantly. They haven't really been fully on top of this one. And I think it's reasonable to say that during the last couple of months, there has been more than a state, not so much panic, but absolute confusion out there. Things don't make sense. Numbers don't make sense. Graphs that don't make sense. Figures that I think we can now all reasonably say were invented. We are familiar with the contradictions in this story. We are familiar with the doom and gloom predictions that never did happen. We are also responsible enough to know that we have to be careful. We have to tread carefully, behave carefully, respect each other's space, wash your hands, wipe your face, all the things that we get all of that. We understand that. But reasonable to say that in the last couple of months we have correctly, absolutely correctly, held the Prime Minister to account when there have been inconsistencies and things we absolutely don't understand, things that nobody could reasonably follow and say that makes sense. However, I think Boris Johnson's called this one correctly. Remember, we're talking about something here that 99.9% of people are never going to die of, okay? It's a virus. It will get some people worse than others. I don't know of a single policy other than everybody closing down for an entire year and living in their own loft or cellar. You have to find a way to a compromise between all of those scenarios. And I think we kind of have one here. I think the Christmas thing is a compromise. It's not a free-for-all. You've still got to be responsible. You can't have anybody you like at your house. But here we have a compromise. Are you with Boris Johnson? Has Boris Johnson called this correctly? Because the Professor is saying a third wave is on its way. More deaths are on their way. More infections are on the way. More hospitalizations on the way. More people will be wired up to ventilators. It's on the way. He says we are in danger of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. He's pulling no punches. He's attacking the Prime Minister. He's saying the government have got this wrong. Have they? Have they really? We have been to hell and back as a country. And I know this has affected some people more than others. I think we can all agree that this has been devastating, life-changing to many people. Some people aren't even around because their life was lost, not because of COVID, but because of the knock-on effects of COVID. And the Prime Minister is saying there's going to be 5 days over Christmas where, as long as we're responsible with this, we can get on with it. What's not to like about that? Boris Johnson's called this one correctly. The sage scientist hasn't. 0344 499 1000. Who is right on relaxing restrictions over Christmas? The government or the scientist? Our lines are open now. It's Ian Collins on Talk Radio. The time, 1.